broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPTA 20, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome to The Gailey Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I'm your host, John Parker. We're also streaming on our YouTube channel right now, and when we're not streaming, you can check out all of our episodes on YouTube. We've curated special playlist just for you, including all of our author interviews that we've ever done here on The Gailey Show. So if you are looking for a good queer book, we've got it ready for you to go. And we are doing more author interviews today. So it is Friday. We end our weeks talking about culture and entertainment because LGBTQ artists, writers, filmmakers, theater makers are one of the most censored groups in America today, and we want to lift up their work for you to read, watch, and attend. And also folks who are writing about queer themes and queer characters, also heavily censored in the US. So what is on the show today? Mike Albo's new audiobook, Hologram Boyfriends, came out just this week. He will join us to discuss. But up first, who doesn't love a road trip? You get into a car with another person, drive across the continent, see what you can find. But what happens when one of those travelers is a divorced, neurotic former altar boy who almost throws the other traveler, an eccentric bohemian Jewish artist, off a cliff? Well, that is the true story behind the book Laughing at the Sun, the story of a man who changed his spots. The author is Michael Nejman. Michael has written for the Chicago Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, and the LA Times Syndicate, and his articles have been nationally and internationally syndicated. Hello, Michael. Welcome to The Gailey Show.
Hi, JP. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So before we get to the episode on the cliff, I want to understand who these two people are, one of which obviously is you. So let's start there. Michael, the divorced, neurotic former altar boy.
Right. Right. Laughing at the Sun is it's a midlife crisis cross-country road trip book where two friends, bizarrist, and I'll explain that later, Robert Fisher and myself, get in a yellow rental truck filled with his art. And the goal was to travel from Chicago to Palm Springs. And for 4 days, we're in this rolling confessional where we talked about the changes going on in our lives. And for Bob, it was coming out as gay after a 20-year marriage and 3 children. And for me, it was my umpteenth failed relationship. And you know, people might think because Bob was an artist that he has a degree in art from college, and no, he has a degree in psychiatry, or actually psychology. So, so I had my own built-in therapist for that whole time, and just to insert here too, your listeners might be familiar with a recent Netflix documentary called Will and Harper, where Will Ferrell and Harper Steele, they've had this 30-year relationship and they go on a road trip because Harper is a trans woman, and they talk about those changes in their relationship. And I want to point out, though, that our story has those parallels, but it took place 25 years earlier in 1997, prior to same-sex marriage, and I think people weren't as receptive to the queer community, and so it was pretty challenging.
So tell us about what was happening to you in your life before you got into that truck with Robert's art.
Well, I should share that I've been an ally for the queer community for quite some time. My first marriage was to my high school sweetheart. We got married right out of college. But that relationship dissolved after 2 years because she came out as being a lesbian. Very heartbreaking and confusing to me. But after some time in therapy, I really came to see that was the only decision that could be made. She had gone through she was a survivor of some abuse. Her mother had had 4 husbands. And so I could see that was going to be a problem. So then I went on my own kind of journey, trying to figure out where I go to next. I was really, indecision was a big factor in my life. So I wasn't sure what to do. I would do analysis paralysis, not knowing. I would get into a relationship and overthink it. I had a fear of commitment. To this day, I'm almost 70 and don't have a tattoo. Can't even come close to making that kind of a commitment. And I wasn't giving and or receiving unconditional love. And it wasn't until, and we can talk about this later as we talk about Bob and Edward, until I saw their relationship and I saw how they had this really great connection and they gave each other a lot of support and, most importantly, unconditional love. So I was mistaking, love for lust and jumping from relationship to relationship. And after having been burned that first time in my first marriage, it took me a long time, well into 1996, I think, before I really. Actually, this road trip with Bob was the inspiration for me to turn my life around and change my spots, so to speak, become a better person, a better man.
So that's who you are, getting into that truck. Who is Bob now? The eccentric bohemian Jewish artist who is known in Chicago as the Windy City Warhol.
Yes. Bob was, it's interesting because we were friends a good 15 years, and he was very eccentric. He dressed, in very colorful clothing. He had tattoos before that was really popular, and he wore jewelry. But you know what? So did Keith Richards of the Stones. So I never gave it any thought because he was married. He had 3 kids, and the flags were there. I should have kind of figured this out. I didn't have gaydar back then, I guess, but we would go to a lot of nightclubs together as part of our posse. He was called the Windy City Warhol, and he had a very Warhol-like existence in Chicago. We never waited in any lines, but we would go to a lot of gay clubs because they had the best music and we had the best time. So never thought about it, though. It wasn't until just before we went on this road trip that he had shared that. And it was shared in a very offbeat way. He had a gallery show, and I was in attendance for that gallery show. And Edward came out. Bob was living out in California at the time, but Edward came in from Palm Springs. He was in Chicago for this gallery show. I was with my partner, and she was chatting up Edward, and Edward kind of outed Bob, and she kind of whispered in my ear, "Did you know that Bob's gay?" And no, and so it was kind of a shock to the system, but hey, he found somebody that he loved, and that was important. I think that interestingly enough, I had a very good connection with his wife, Paula. We both kind of shared the same story. We had both lost our partners as they came out as being gay. And so, and to this day, actually, I'm really good friends with Paula. Would you like to know how we met, though, me and Bob? Because that's kind of a fun story.
Yeah.
Is that good? So I'm
very interested in how we get to this truck and how the truck
kind of a roundabout way, but come along for the trip,
Yes.
I was dating this woman who was working for an advertising agency, and she said, "Would you like to come to this underground Halloween party?" And I thought, "Oh, okay, sure, I'm open-minded." And she had one caveat, though. She said, "You have to dress provocatively." So I go to my closet and I look around and I'm like, I don't see anything provocative. So I had to be creative, and I came up with a costume this kind of demonic clown. I called him Satan the Clown. So I had this very menacing face paint and everything. Then she dressed up as a sexy French maid, and so we had this kind of good combination of creepy and sexy. And we go to this. It was called the Circus of the Bizarre. And Bob, bizarre is his term. It's bizarre art, and he used to do these what he would call neo-vaudevillian extravaganzas, where he would have all these performers. And this particular one, he had fire eaters and glass eaters and exotic dancers, men who had really great names here. I wrote these down so I don't forget. There was Buster Hyman, Biff Cakes, Randy Hooker. They had a 5-man dance troupe called the Beef Trust, well before Magic Mike was ever on the screen. And so we go to this event, and it was just so much fun. The people, there were a lot of exhibitionists, there were a lot of voyeurs. It was like really a cool combination. So the very next day, I write Bob Fisher a letter, and I said, dear Mr. Fisher, I went to your Circus of the Bizarre. I found it to be the most decadent and disgusting display of humanity I've ever seen. I loved every minute of it. How can I get involved? And he calls me up, we go to dinner, and I became his production manager. So that started a 15-year relationship. Wow. And then, as I said, as time progressed, he moved out to California in the early 90s. He was living in LA, then he moved out to the desert. He met Edward at a men's group that gay men who were in marriages. And I think that was 96. And then he had the gallery show in Chicago where I met Edward. And so he came out sort of inadvertently.
Wow. So Bob wants to get art from Chicago to across the country.
Right.
How did you both agree to get in this truck together?
Oh man, this was really, that's one of the reasons I was ready to kill him. I had done a couple cross country trips before. I love road trips, as you were saying earlier. Put in some good music, open road. What more could you want, right? And so when he asked me, he goes, I have to drive my art. He had put a lot of his art in storage in Chicago, but as I said, he was living now in LA. He said, I need to transport my art into to the West Coast. Would you be interested in doing that? I'll fly you home if you drive out with me. And I was like, so what are we talking here? Is it a, matter of days? Is it pedal to the metal, or can we kind of enjoy ourselves on the road? Because I wanted to see sights and have coffee shops, enjoy myself. I didn't want to just be racing down the highway. Although in Iowa and Nebraska, one needs to do that because it's so expansive and flat. But so Bob goes, yeah. I said, so a 5-day or 7-day excursion? He said, it can be 7. We'll take our time. And what happened was that wasn't the case at all. And I get it. He was missing Edward, and within a day or two, it was obvious that he wanted to do pedal to the metal. And I think we did it in 4 days. And I wasn't happy about that. And at one point, he said some pretty rude things. He pressed a lot of my buttons.
I want to hear about the buttons, because now we're driving towards the cliff, as it were. We're talking with Michael Nejman, author of Laughing at the Sun, the story of a man who changed his spots. We're going to take a break here, but before we do, I want to share about our travel partner, Travel Marquette. And the reason why is that Marquette, Michigan is a very special place to me. For the past decade, I have been going there every single year. And part of the reason why I love it is that I don't have to worry about traveling while queer while I'm there, because it's a university town, super blue city, and a super blue county, very active pride organization. The Stand Up Comedy Festival will be back at the Orodoc Brewing Company in Marquette, November 5th through the 8th. And also starting in November, you can experience the magic of the holiday season as the historic Lower Harbor Orodoc lights up with magical laser displays every Thursday through Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. on the north side of the dock. This is a huge dock, literally out in the water. And it's designed by the Fresh Coast Light Lab, free, family-friendly. Obviously, you're downtown, so good restaurants and holiday shopping. If that is something you would like to do, you can start your adventure at travelmarquette.com. That's travelmarquette.com. DM me on Blue Sky. Happy to give you all sorts of recommendations of where to go and shop. You're listening to The Gailey Show. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I'm John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. I'm here with the author of Laughing at the Sun, which is the true story of a 1997 4-day midlife crisis road trip across America. Michael Nejman. All right, you're in the truck. The art is loaded. You and Bob are now driving across Iowa on your way to Los Angeles, kind of pedal to the metal. We're coming up on an incident where you get into an argument with him. I'm laughing, but it's a serious thing, where there's a holding him off a cliff, shall we say? Tell us about it.
Well, let me back up just a second, because as I was thinking about writing this book, I keep journals all the time. I was looking at these journals and I thought I should write a book about this because it was a fun story. And since Bob's a major player in it, I wanted to call him and make sure he was okay with that. So I called him up. I said, Bob, I'm thinking about writing a book about that road trip we did together. And he goes, oh, the one where you almost killed me? And I had to stop for a moment, because it's like, what? I completely blocked that out of my mind. And then I thought to myself, man, I really have to write this book now. And what happened was we were about mid-trip and we're looking at this expanse, and it's beautiful. And I'm just enjoying the moment. As I shared earlier, that was part of why I wanted to go, was to enjoy nature and see the country, And Bob's like, looking at his watch going, come on, we gotta get going. And so he was just pressing on my buttons, and he knows where to press because he installed them. And so I grabbed him by the collar, and I really got angry. And I pushed him, and he was really right on the edge of this cliff. And I
Now,
swore.
where is this? Is this like the Grand Canyon or?
No, it was a lookout. Not it was a pretty big expanse, but yeah, it wasn't the Grand Canyon. He would have gone 100 feet maybe at the most, but still, it would have done some damage.
The most.
What's funny though is I'm yelling at him, not realizing that there's people all around us kind of witnessing this, And so I put him down. I said, yeah, "I'm sorry." But he really was pushing me hard, and it's like, come on, we need to just take our time and enjoy this trip. And so after that, though, he kind of saw that he needed to back off a little bit, and we cleared the air. We were fine. But that's how the book starts, though. Is that I've got him, I'm holding him over a cliff. Yes.
That's a good place to start a book. You talked about it earlier of being a 4-day, road trip of therapy. Essentially, you both are going through pretty significant life changes, and when you've got two people trapped in a truck, what was coming up for both of you, as you were going along there? I mean, you call this. I mean, the subhead is the story of a man who changed his spots.
Right. Well, for me, because I want to spend time on Bob, though I think it's important since he was going through the issue of coming out. For myself, though, I remember a friend had said to me one time, with all these failed relationships that I'd had, he goes, well, a leopard never changes his spots. And I remember it was depressing to me to hear that, because I thought, no, I can change. I can be a better man, And after this experience, after witnessing what Bob and Edward had, their unconditional love, the relationship, it inspired me to pursue things like a gratitude diary. I wasn't a big Oprah fan, but I happened to watch one of her shows where she talked about a gratitude diary. So that was one thing that I started doing, which really changed my life, because I remember she says that, write 3 to 5 things you're grateful for every day. And I did this for like a month, and it was just monotonous. I was like, this isn't moving the needle at all. And then one day I remember coming home from work thinking to myself, oh, what a day. I can't think of 2 things, let alone 5, And when I really sat down to do it, I came up with 20. And I thought to myself, okay, I've been focusing on the negative things too much. I need to be more positive. And then a friend of mine was going through an AA program, and he had a 12-step program. And I asked him about those 12 steps, and I modified them to meet my needs. So I did things like reaching out to my previous partners and apologizing and trying to make amends. Some of them were open to it, other ones not so much. But I made that effort, and I really worked hard. And I even took myself out of the dating scene for a good year. I wanted to make sure that I was, looking for someone I wanted to settle down with. And I was in my 40s at that point. And I'm happy to say that I'm celebrating my 19th anniversary with my wife, Laura, next week. So that's really, goes to show you that you can change your spots.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And for Bob, his shift was, he had a wife, Paula, for 20 years and three children. He had already made the shift, though. They had come out to California. He was living out in LA, and then he moved to the desert. He had met Edward through a men's group. And he had made that shift, though, that he knew he needed to come out. He needed to be true to himself. He needed to live his truth. And so when we were on the road trip, it wasn't so much that he was processing that as much as we were just talking about, he was filling me in on who Edward was, and how they fell in love and how they met and so on and so forth. And it was just so refreshing. Edward was such a wonderful person. He was an English professor. He was an author of many academic books. I just checked this morning. Some of them are on Amazon. He had poetry. He was a poet. He had the book that he gave me was wonderful, Homo erectus, which is still in print. Enjoyed that a great deal. Interesting tidbit about Edward is that his mom is Sylvia D, and she wrote the song, a very popular song in the late 50s, early 60s called "The End of the World," which was recorded by Skeeter Davis, and it's used in a bunch of movies. So he was getting royalties all along, the time that I knew him. Wow. But Edward was just a wonderful person, socially liberal, but a conservative, fiscal conservative type of person, really kind of a wonderful individual. And Bob and he lived in a house in Palm Springs that they called the Paradise Ranch. And when we finally got there, it was this beautiful oasis with a pool, and they had classical music playing, and Edward took care of our every need while we were there with, feeding us and making sure that, I had a shower and stuff, because after 4 days, one needed that. But it was a really great experience meeting him. And Bob had filled me in on who Edward was, and I could see why he needed to make that change. But we did talk about having my background, losing my partner, through a divorce because she came out as a lesbian, and then he had his leaving his wife. So.
The book is Laughing at the Sun, the story of a man who changed his spots. We have links in our show notes and on our website for you to get your copy. You can connect with Michael at michaelnejman.com. That's NEJMAN.com. Thank you, Michael, for joining us here on The Gailey Show.
And could I just insert, if you're interested in Robert Fisher's work, he has Robert Fisher Photography, and you can see his books, and he does a lot of street photography. He's not doing as much painting as he did, but now it's photography. But I highly recommend you check that out. It's really well worth checking out.
Thank you for that plug. All right, we got to take another break here. Programming announcement, Make Halloween One to Remember. Join Greg Bakken tonight for a special 4-hour Ghost Box Radio Halloween broadcast starting at 7 p.m. He's going to go live from Haunted Pillsbury Club in Minneapolis, home of the Minneapolis Trolley Tours, which is an LGBTQ-owned business here in the Twin Cities. He will be joined by Adam, Refined Divine, Char Savoy, and other guests for a real paranormal investigation inside the Pillsbury Club, filled with spirits, stories, and maybe a few surprises. If you want to experience it in person, Trolley Tours will be running all night. And if you stop by the club, just say Ghost Box Radio at the door to check out the broadcast. Of course, if you can't make it, tune in here to AM 950 KTNF, or you can watch the entire investigation live on Facebook or YouTube. You are listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I'm John Parker. It is 33 minutes after the hour. We are also streaming on our YouTube channel right now, and when we are not streaming, we have curated playlists of author interviews for you, Minneapolis mayoral candidates, so definitely check those out. Every single author interview we have ever done on The Gailey Show is there in a playlist for you so that you can find a queer book to read right away. We are continuing our author interviews today, which actually this one is going to be an audiobook. And here's a question for you, listeners and watchers, viewers on YouTube. Back in the 2000s, how did one figure out how to use gay men as lube for consumer culture? It's one of many provocative questions in Hologram Boyfriends, Sex, Love, and Overconnection, a new book, new as in just came out like this week, by Mike Albo. As a comedian and storyteller, Mike has performed across North America and Europe. He's written for numerous publications, including The New Yorker, GQ, Elle, many more. He's authored 3 novels. Hornito, considered one of the 50 best LGBT works of fiction by Flavor Wire. The cult classic, The Underminer, the best friend who casually destroys your life, written with Virginia Heffernan. And Another Dimension of Us. His other works include The Junket and Spermhood, Diary of a Donor. He joins me now. Mike, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so one of my favorite, is it pieces, sections of the audiobook? How did one figure out how to use gay men as lube for consumer culture in the early 2000s?
Well,
let's just jump right in.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? The 2000s were a time, in my opinion, when gay men were becoming marketable. They were losing the mantle of being these sort of AIDS-ridden, sickly, sad characters in culture, and they were becoming style experts, and people were learning how to wear their clothes through gay men having style. And it was this time from 2000 to 2010 when that all started happening. And so it's one of the many sort of more provocative things I talk about in Hologram Boyfriends.
Yes. And you're also, as a performer, a similar time in the 90s, early 2000s, where as a performer, you, great sentence, you realized you had about 3 years to sell yourself as the spokesperson of Gen X. How did you go about doing that during this very specific time of queer history in the US that was very unique in all of the history of our country the past 250 years?
Yeah, I have such nostalgia for the early 90s, just because I was, in my 20s. So there's nostalgia for that, of course. But, when come to think of it, it was a time when there was a real unification with the LGBTQ people. I was writing for Out Magazine at the time, and it was a real joyous, like,
Mhm.
men and women together kind of moment. Got to say, the trans representation is not as robust as it is now. But you're in your 20s and you're like, God, I've got to make it. This is the only time I have. I have 3 years and then I'm older than the hills. So I tried my best to, I don't know, become Sarah McLachlan. It didn't work.
I guess also where I'm headed with that, because there's a section called MikeAlbo.net. So tell us about MikeAlbo.net, because I was listening to it, I'm like, oh my God, yep, that was the internet.
Yep. Yeah. Well, MikeAlbo.com was my website at the time.
Oh, my bad.
And
yes, .com.
yes, net is the one that survives. .com is the one that's been pirated and is out there in the mysterious universe. Yeah. So MikeAlbo.com, I was trying to get my legs as a comedian, and this is also the time of blogs. This is, another thing that we kind of don't remember very much, but blogs were so important back in the 2000s, and so I was trying my best to become a blogger, although it didn't really quite get much attention. But that was sort of this interesting time before social media, when you were creating your own platforms and creating your own content and hoping people would see it, instead of going onto these platforms and trying to create a persona for social media. So there I was trying to do my best with MikeAlbo.com. And then I sort of didn't pay attention to the website for about 2 months. And then suddenly it was ripped out from under me because I forgot to reboot the domain name. And now it just floats there out in the internet.
Oh my God. And when I was listening, I'm like, yeah, the blogs. I mean, that was the whole Julia, which was the film, but was based off of Julie. What was her last name? But she was the one that did the blog of doing a recipe of Julia Child, one a day or one a week for a year, and got a whole book deal out of that. And then there was the movie.
Yes.
So there's that. Then you go and do a poetry degree.
Yes, very important. I was really financially minded, John. I really was, working hard on making money back in college.
Well, this is where I empathize, because I was like, so I did a theater degree, specifically an acting degree, and I accrued all of this debt. Yes. And then I decided, when I got all the way done with it, I don't really want to do this. But I ended up paying for it. And you had a line in your audiobook, you're like, my student loans are making more money than I'm making right now. And I thought, yes, that's a line for a generation.
Yes, my shadow self makes more money than I do. There's some dark net version of myself that is just raking in the money, the negative money. Yes, I was entranced with poetry. I loved poetry as a child. I went to college and focused on poetry. I went to grad school for poetry. That's where my student loans happened. And, John, I got to say, even though us theater people or poetry people might regret it at the same time, hey, listen, I have a voice, that I don't think I would have had if I had not done that. So I support anyone who wants to go into the lucrative field of poetry. It's important.
Yeah. No, it is. I know. I agree. I wouldn't be able to do this show if I hadn't done all of that training like 20 odd years ago. We are here with Mike Albo, whose new audiobook, Hologram Boyfriends, came out just this week. Okay, so another section I enjoyed. Let's fast forward a little bit to 2009. You're working for a TV network, which I think I can guess who it is, but I don't know if we're allowed to say or not, who wants to update their brand Bible to it's not mainstream until it's gay stream.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I could I don't know. I was like, are you sure you want to do this? It sounds like water sports to me. Like, why do you want to use this as your slogan? And they're like, nope, this is our slogan. I was like, okay, gotta work with my client here. So I did my best to create a brand Bible where the slogan was, it's not mainstream until it's gay stream.
But part of that I love about that section is that you have to craft the viewer, like the ideal viewer for this station. And so that's where Hunter comes into play. And I think Heather, was it Heather?
Hunter and Heather, yes.
Hunter and Heather. It's kind of a trip that you're in this very specific moment of gay history and you're working with this particular network that's like, for the first time, you've got networks that are like, hey, let's go after the gays. Yeah. And now you're creating their ideal viewer. I mean, walk us through that process and what you discover.
Right. Well, your listeners might know that, people in the commercial world have been creating personas and doing audience segmentation analysis like this for years. Mademoiselle magazine had Millie, the perfect reader for Mademoiselle magazine. Everyone does this when you're trying to create a product or, create a viewership, I suppose. And so this network was trying to find its perfect gay and its perfect audience that did not include lesbians. Lesbians, they felt, were watching the We channel or other channels and were getting their content from other places. But the gay man had lots of money to spend, and his straight girl best friend was his best friend, Heather. But she didn't make as much money as him, interestingly, in the breakdown. But there's Hunter with all his money, he's got his hotel job and he loves to wear Armani and, he does this and he does that. And so they were creating a persona of a person that they sort of they're the aspirational person, I suppose, that their viewers should be. This still happens all the time. And in my corporate work as a writer, I've done lots of persona creating for all sorts of products. It's just the way things are. It's really creepy. But so I had to write for Hunter and Heather.
I just think for me, it was very interesting because I was in my 20s in the aughts. And so it was a really wild to suddenly, because in the 90s, it was basically you saw yourself on TV when, someone was dying of AIDS or they had been, murdered, a la Matthew Shepard. And so here suddenly you have these stations, you've got Queer Eye, you've got these stations that are saying, let's create content. And so it was really fascinating that you gave us the behind the scenes look of what went into that. And some of it well-intentioned, some of it, jaw-droppingly cringe, as it were. Talk to us. So then there's the title of the book, Hologram Boyfriends, and there is a section about a hologram boyfriend. So unpack that particular. Is it? Am I saying that right? Is it sections? Is it chapters in an audiobook? What's
songs? I don't know. It feels funny. It is an audiobook. It's an audiobook first, and it's written and read by me. And when I finished it, I was like, oh my God, this is like an album. This is like a concept album. It feels like a cohesive time of sort of an emotional outburst that I had. And I wrote it from like August to 2024 till December. A lot of stuff just came out of me. All these feelings I had about culture and about looking for love online. But the hologram boyfriend himself is sort of this imaginary person, or are they imaginary? I don't know. They're these people that I feel attached to. Some of them I've never met that are just out there in the world. These men that I've now buddied from across the country. And I have so many of these men that I just keep up with. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I hope he gets to grad school. I hope he gets his new contracting job in Tennessee. I just know all these people's lives now because I just love to connect with people. So it's kind of the way that our fractured dating online world really speaks to me, because I just love to connect and talk to people.
I giggled at Ryan O'Connell's blurb of your book. So folks who don't know, actor/producer of Netflix's special, described it as a historical document about what it means to live a life more URL than IRL. Historical document. Thoughts?
I love Ryan. He's so sweet, and he and I met on Grindr. Gotta say, we've just become friends. He's so talented, and he's such a great person. And he and I both don't really hold back when it comes to depicting sex. I do hold back a little bit. I'm not like giving you the blow by blow, as it were, but I do believe it's important to talk about, especially for gay guys, desire and where desire lives in our body and how it's being used and how it might be used as an energy for other people to make money off of it. So a lot about Hologram Boyfriends is about gay desire and where it lives inside me and how it might be being exploited, I suppose.
I have to fit in a break here. I have so many questions for you, and I've got about 90 seconds left. But we're gonna have more with Mike Albo, whose new book, audiobook, Hologram Boyfriends, came out just this week. Before we take this break, check out our GLAAD Media Award nominated podcast, This Queer Book Saved My Life. I interview LGBTQ guests from across the rainbow about the queer books that had a life-saving impact for them, which means finding the language to come out, finding a way to begin their gender affirmation, and in a couple cases, literally life-saving. Plus, we're able to bring the authors into the conversations as well and find out how and what it took to get that book into the world. This Queer Book Saved My Life is available everywhere you stream your podcast and at thisqueerbook.com. We are going to take that break. We're going to see you on the flip side of these messages from our sponsors and advertisers who make shows like this possible on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. I am John Parker. We are coming up on the top of the hour. I am here with Mike Albo, whose new audiobook, Hologram Boyfriends, came out just this week. Mike, I want you to unpack a little bit more for me, because it is a theme, obviously, that you explore in your book about gay desire, where it lives, and the commodification of it. And I think this comes at a very interesting time. The publication, let's just say that, of your book, because we're watching a bunch of corporations suddenly go, we're over that. We don't even know gay people anymore, and they're disappearing from Pride, and they're just taking product off the shelves. And so talk to me about that, what you were exploring within this book about where gay desire lives in you, and then the commodification of that.
Yeah. I started the book thinking about desire, and I've always, when someone, especially one of my more hippie, radical fairy gay friends, will be like, oh, I just took the desire and moved it through my body. I've been like, how can you move desire through your body? What is it? Is it an energy? How do you do that? So I started exploring desire as an energy. And then I did a lot of reading, a lot of personal work. And I have in the book, there's a lot of exploration about different techniques of doing this, of sexual kung fu, or controlling your energy in different ways throughout your meridians, which I'm terrible at. I'll let you know right now. I'm not an expert at all. But,
I have no idea what you just said.
but I do love the idea of it as an energy, and if it is an energy, how is it being used, and how is it being used by other people, and how am I letting it be used by other people? So I started exploring that. And as for the commodification of gay culture, we watched it happen. I remember, back in the 90s, even being at gay pride in New York and watching some alcohol have a float and be like, oh, this is funny. Or like a bank, be like, oh, okay, so-and-so bank is suddenly gay and has rainbow flags on it, and be like, what's going on here? It's a very American consumer culture way of looking at identity. And I think since and I'm not saying I'm not very happy that corporations are pulling out, but it's an interesting time to think about, wait, who are we as gay, lesbian, trans people, and who's really benefiting from our identity? And let's maybe bring it back to the community a little bit and look out for each other in a more grounded way, I suppose.
Did you think of it then? Because, I mean, you're working with a TV network, creating their brand Bible. Did you think of it as progress when this network you were working with and other corporations were starting to say, how do we, commodify gay desire? Because I think there were a lot of people, they were thinking, okay, if Fortune 500s, if Fortune 1000s are paying attention to us and they want to see us as, consumers, that must mean progress. And now we're kind of looking back at that and going, maybe not so much. And so for you at the time, though, did you see it as progress?
Oh God, I was trying my best to become part of that progress. I wanted so badly to be like a queer eye for the straight guy person. I'm just too awkward to have some of my best friends are celebrities who are, killing it in that world. And I don't want to denigrate their talent or their magnetism. It's just, I'm just not, and identity is weird, especially identity when it becomes a corporate attraction,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really not trying to say, I'm not trying to be argumentative about it. I just think it's something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when it comes to your own emotions and your own inner life. Where is that inner life and where is this outer representation that is supposed to be making people money? Where do they exist with each other?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I am talking with Mike Albo, whose new audiobook, Hologram Boyfriends, came out just this week. You read it, you perform your book, and but it's not just like you sitting in front of a microphone. There's design happening. There's audio design. There's sound clips and all of that happening in there. Walk me through that process of a very you've been unpacking for us the different sections, the different chapters of this book. Talk to me then through the process of designing an audiobook. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a new field for me, at least, this idea of an audio original. And I worked with the incredible studio team at Macmillan, and we decided to put in special effects, just light special effects. It's not like boing. It's not like these crazy sounds all over the place. So there are just these little touches here and there to kind of give it some environment. And then there's also some live performance. Since I'm a performer, we put in some live performance as well. So it kind of goes back and forth between studio and live. But I do have to say, those people who read audiobooks are talents, man. That is hard work. I learned so much about you. I mean, the talent to be on a radio to announce and do all that stuff it's not easy. And I had a vocal coach, I had an acting coach, I had a voiceover coach before I did it. I learned so much about how to speak into a microphone, which is a different thing than being on a stage, because it picks up every little bit of your sound, including your stomach rumbles when you're hungry. So I had to put a pillow over my stomach sometimes if we were late in the day. I'd be like, grumble, grumble. I'd be like, oh shit. So I have to cover myself. I learned so much. It was such a fun experience, and it's really hard. It takes a lot of work.
Well, folks, you're going to enjoy it. It is a treat. The audiobook is Hologram Boyfriends. We have links in our show notes and on our website for you to get your copy to download it to whatever audiobook player that you use. You can connect with Mike at mikealbo.net. That's ALBO.net. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining me today. This has been a real pleasure.
Oh, thanks. Me too. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening and or watching today on YouTube. If you like what we're doing, click subscribe, click the like button. Oh, now I feel like I'm doing the thing that you were talking about, Mike. The content creation. Anyway, you can keep the gay going on all weekend long. On Saturday afternoon is Pride on AM 950. You can catch up with the best of The Gaily Show at 2 p.m., Twin Cities Pride Amplified at 3 p.m., The Legal Trans Woman at 4 p.m., and The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony at 5 p.m. Then on Sunday at 11 a.m. on WCPT 820, tune in for Out Chicago. It's Sunday brunch with your gay best friends, Ellen Miller and Scott Duff. And until this time, on Monday. Keep it queer, America.